All right, guys. Good morning. Welcome to History Saver 1941. And then, we're on the road as you can see as normal, but we have someone I call one of my best YouTube friends. We talk every week. James from Project Past here, joining us this morning. Good morning, James.
Finally.
Yeah, we've been trying to do this a while, haven't we?
Yeah, it's weird how schedules never match up when you want them to.
No, no, and I know your schedule's crazy, and mine is just stupid as well. So,
Oh yeah,
um,
you're doing some stuff.
Yeah, man, I'm doing too much, honestly. Uh,
You don't
Paul's here.
say.
Good morning. Good morning,
What's
Paul.
up, Paul?
World War II. It's two is here this morning. Good morning. Yeah, man, it's been nuts. We're on the road. Dustin's here. Good morning. Spicy tuna rolls. Morning.
Don't trust Dustin. Don't trust that guy.
I know, man. He's got me wanting to go to Wilson's Creek on this long road trip I'm about to take.
Hmm.
Uh, I know he's got you wanting to go to Wilson's Creek as well.
Yeah, he's
So
always sending me pictures, and I think he's trying to get me in trouble with the wife. But you know,
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah, my wife is about to have a fit because I've got books coming to the house like crazy right now. She come home yesterday to 7 packages and about 30 books, and she said, "Well, how are you going to read all these before you leave? Before we leave on this trip in 3 weeks?" I said, "I don't know." So,
Yeah, there's if you can figure out a way to get 30 hours in a day, that would be ideal because 24 is clearly not enough.
I know, man. I know with you, you've got a lot of stuff brewing too.
Yeah,
You've got
yeah. So I
you got
stay
some
busy.
trip you got some trips going on. You're juggling work and then family and a baby, and at least I don't have to deal with the baby aspect of it. I don't guess, um, you've got some cool stuff that you've been featuring on the channel, and you've been doing some stuff in Gettysburg. I know we were there together for the anniversary back in last July, and
Hmm.
you were all over the place then. I was as well, but I mean, some of the content you've been getting out, man, from Gettysburg, Antietam, then going back to Gettysburg, getting some more,
All
and
roads lead to Gettysburg, right?
all roads always lead to lead
Yep.
back to Gettysburg. It's just the coolest place on earth to me.
It is. It's a
So,
great place.
you guys just did something really cool. I really enjoyed. Um, and I can't wait to see more. Is kind of you've got something I don't have, and you guys were relaying that in one of your recent videos, and some of the things I think you got coming up is going to relay it a little bit too. Is that you're a military veteran, so
Mhm.
you have that experience in the military, which I do not, and that makes you, in my opinion, it makes what you do so cool because you could kind of relate to some of these guys and that soldier mentality at the time. And you've been relaying that in some of the recent episodes. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I love military history all my life. So when I enlisted in the National Guard as a medic, it was kind of a cool feeling because you're kind of like, hey, I'm kind of a part of history now. Walking in the footsteps of the people you read about. Especially being a medic, and you hear a lot about Desmond Doss. So just to be able to give back a little bit to a country that has given me so much was a cool experience. I was never deployed. I've never saw combat. So as far as the combat aspect of, you know, going to these battlefields and things, I can't really relate fully. But from being, an enlisted service member and, reading accounts from, privates and, at the times corporals and things of that nature, you kind of relate. There's always that saying, weapons change, but warriors don't. And I, I believe that you can probably have a conversation with a veteran from any generation and you can probably have similar experiences and basic training and cutting up with the guys and stuff like that. So it's definitely cool, relatable in that aspect. But I'm teaming up with someone who has seen combat, And you know, I want to see if, when we look at a battlefield, we look at it from historical context. This brigade was here, this brigade was here, they fought here for this many hours or this many casualties. I want to see if someone who's been in combat views things a little differently than me. When they're looking at, Culp's Hill, for example, when they're looking at that, what are they thinking? Are we thinking about different things? Are we, is his experience giving him some insight as to what the guys were going through? We can all read accounts, but what do those accounts truly mean? And that's the biggest thing that I want to get to the bottom of, is seeing how his experience in modern day combat relates to someone that was fighting for their life on the slopes of Culp's Hill. And I want to see if there's any connections. So I'm excited. Now, I met up with Colby last year in November, and it's kind of an idea on paper. And then when we met, we kind of discussed some things, and we think we can make this work. And we went out to Culp's Hill and shot some stuff, some promo stuff, some teaser stuff, and just really to see if we can bring this concept to life. And we're both very excited about it. And I think we're on to something really cool, and I'm excited to learn from it. And I'm excited for you guys to see his experiences and how they relate to someone in the Civil War.
Yeah, most definitely, man. That's one of the things I know, when me and you talking privately back and forth over the past year, one of the things we have in common is we love both studying about those personal experiences of the guys who you know, live doing what, these things we read about.
Hmm.
Um, and when we went to Gettysburg for the anniversary in July, I mean, you've had this conversation a lot as well, as what aspects of the Battle of Gettysburg did we enjoy the most? And I know that Cups Hill is, you said was one of your favorites. What makes Cups Hill though your favorite spot on the battlefield? What really appeases to you about Cups Hill?
Well, it's tough because I think I suffer from recency bias. So wherever I'm at on the battlefield, and when I come home, that part of the battlefield is always on my mind. If I go to Gettysburg and I spend a lot of time near the railroad cut or the day one portions, I'm like, oh, that place is great. And then this last trip, I went to Culp's Hill. And what was different was I went in the winter. And the past few times I've gone to Gettysburg has been in the summer. So everything's lush green. You can't really see the terrain for what it is. But when I went in the winter, I kind of had an idea that a lot of the undergrowth would be dormant and die back. But to go to Culp's Hill and just to see how open it was, and you can really see the terrain and for what it was, and what parts of the battlefield when the Confederates were coming up, just how there was no cover, there was no concealment. It was just straight up into the teeth of George Sears Green's New Yorkers. And, that really helps you paint the picture when you see the terrain. You can read about it and you can watch documentaries about it, but when you're there on the field and you can see the terrain for what it truly is, it really helps kind of offer some clarity as to why that position was so impregnable.
You know, how many rounds was it that was fired at Cups Hill? Wasn't it somewhere
Oh,
around like close to a million?
yeah, I want to say I've read 2 million, but I don't know for certain. But I know it's a couple million just in that portion of the battlefield. So just imagine the amount of lead flying through the air to make 2 million rounds. Like, that's a well trained soldier. What, fires 3 rounds a minute?
Yeah,
So
yeah, something.
now put that in perspective.
It's crazy for me to think about too. I'm recently finished up a book talking about the aftermath of the Battle of Gettysburg,
Hmm.
and in particular, there's 3 chapters in this book talking just about what the people who lived in Gettysburg experienced at Cups Hill. And they describe the aftermath, and this about to get a little bit gory, guys. So earmuffs if you're got small kids around and don't want them hearing about this. But some of the things that were described in this book was one lady described legs hanging in the trees and arms, um, scattered all over the battlefield. And one guy actually put his story in there where his grandfather was out on the battlefield. He had a farm there in Gettysburg, and a leg fell out of a tree and hit him on top of the head. So,
That's quite
I
the
mean,
experience.
yeah, and these guys lay there for years. I thought, it was a few months, they maybe missed someone here and there. No, they talk about bodies were never recovered off of the battlefield.
Hmm.
And when you walk through Cups Hill or any part of the Gettysburg battlefield, I mean, now after reading this book, for me, I'm just imagining, okay, am I going to stumble across a skeleton here that no one has found?
Yeah, you never
And
know, really.
you don't. And it's, I don't know, Gettysburg for me just had an eerie vibe because so much happened there.
Hmm.
And besides Gettysburg, I know Antietam was probably one of your favorite battles.
Hmm.
Um, what, and you know a heck of a lot more about Antietam than I do.
Yeah, debatable.
What I mean, Antietam is a whirlwind of confusion for me. Um, but what is your favorite aspect of Antietam? Just curious.
Um, I'll have to say just how pure it is now. I think it's preserved better than probably 90% of the battlefields out there. You can truly go to Antietam and you see it for what it was. Gettysburg is masterfully restored as well, but you also have, sometimes you can see KFC when you're walking Pickett's Charge and things like that. Like Antietam, you
Right.
go there, and outside of a road or two, it's how it was. And I think that offers the best, I guess, clarity. When you read Rufus Dawes left copious amounts of firsthand accounts about the cornfield there and things of that nature, and you can read those again and be on the ground and you can truly see it for what it was. So when he's describing it, you're like, this is literally here, like this is how it was. And I think that's what makes Antietam special. And you think of like Burnside Bridge. How many bridges saw that level of carnage in our history that are still there? Like at one point there were cars driving over that bridge, and now it's just like it was at the time of the battle. So I think that's what makes Antietam so special. How many Burnside bridges are there? How many sunken lanes or bloody lanes or however you want to call it? How many of those are there? Like that, those are the
Yeah.
spots. You see the pictures and then you can go to those spots. I think that's what makes Antietam the top for me. The more I go there, the more I enjoy Antietam. Gettysburg's always been the pinnacle of places, and it still kind of is, but Antietam is a very special place.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was Burnside's Bridge too, because you could stand there and physically imagine Union troops coming over the bridge.
Mm,
It, I mean, because like you said, the land is perfectly almost preserved, other than a few other small details that's been added in.
mm,
Um, I think I would say that Burnside's Bridge was probably one of my coolest battlefield experiences to date. Even more so than Gettysburg, just because of that factor. And for me, it was not only the bridge, but the tree, the witness
yeah,
tree
witness
that's
tree.
standing there.
Yeah.
So, what do you do to prepare for, all of the traveling and episodes you do? What goes into your preparation?
Well, so when I first started, I had no idea the extent of work that needed to be done. I would just go to a site and whip out my phone and talk. And I'm not afraid to say that my first 30 episodes, or maybe 40, you can say, are kind of rough. At least in my eyes, they make me nauseous when I watch them. And every time they get views and comments, I'm like, don't watch those. Come on, watch the newer stuff. Not that it's any better, but I feel better about them. But I realize that it's a lot. Everything from the camera gear, you got to make sure everything's charged. If you show up at a battlefield and your camera dies 500 yards away from your car, like that's time. Then you got to go back to your car. Tech issues are going to happen. Sometimes they're unavoidable. But as far as
Yeah.
like preparation, a lot of studying. I actually have it here. One of my favorite books I've used is The Brigades of Gettysburg. Do you have it? Yeah, there you go. It's top notch. And what it does is I get confused when you zoom out to like a division or corps level. there's just so many moving parts, and it's kind of overwhelming for me. So what I started doing to understand these battles is getting to the brigade level and then getting a little smaller. A brigade has 3 to 5 regiments depending on what period of the war you're studying. But then you
Yeah.
get down to the regiments and it's just more personal. You can walk in the exact place that, say we're talking about Antietam, the 16th Connecticut, we can go to their spot where they got flanked and chewed up really good, depending on what side you're rooting for. And you can be in that spot. When you're talking about a division, you're like, okay, the division was all here, like a mile wide. The Ninth Corps was this entire area. You can't get personal. So Brigades of
Right.
Gettysburg and Brigades of Antietam, those books offer insight into what that brigade did. And then you can get a little smaller because they leave accounts from the regiments. And I don't know, that's just, that's what I like. So when I study these battles, I try to get as small as possible as far as, brigade or regimental level. And then I just kind of make outlines. You can't remember everything. You're going to forget something.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking about a specific regiment, I'll have a piece of paper with some facts jotted down. And at this point in the battlefield, this happened. And, 20 minutes later, they got flanked here. Like it's a lot of things to remember. So I'm not afraid to write things down. Because as soon as you hit that record button, brain goes blank and you forget how to speak. So,
Yeah, I have that issue a lot.
mhm.
And by the way, guys, this was not a coincidence, okay? I'm gonna be just blank honest with you. This both of us having this book isn't a coincidence. I have this book because of him. So he's the one who actually told me about that book, and I just happened to keep it in my truck 90% of the time for reading.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I was laughing earlier because you mentioned when you first started out, you felt like, your stuff was horrible compared to what it is now, which isn't true. However, if you go back and look at mine, my first videos I started doing on YouTube was the military ration reviews. And God, they were so
Military
bad.
rations.
Dude, go back and watch, or please don't. But I mean, some of those were so bad. There were some that was actually really good, that turned out, pretty well, I think. But oh man, when I first started, I was like outside on my back patio table doing things, and it was bad. And even then, I was a cinematographer,
Mhm.
and I should have known better, but I didn't know what I was doing when it come to YouTube. And yeah, they were bad. They were bad. So I mean, it's come a long way. I miss the military ration reviews sometimes,
What's the
but
oldest
dude,
one
I
you
was
ate?
one from World War II.
Good Lord.
It was yeah, I was
That
an
would put me in
idiot,
the
man.
hospital.
It was actually a Canadian World War II survival ration for a lifeboat,
Interesting.
and it was nothing but chocolate. And I actually did get sick from it. There
Mhm.
was some milk chocolate tablets in there. I don't know if there were vitamins or whatever. And I remember I'm sitting there trying the chocolate. There was like 7 chocolate bars. And right when I shut the camera off and ended the video, my wife looked at me and said, "Were they still lacing chocolate back then with cocaine?" And you
Oh,
know,
let me
I
try it again.
I just looked there. I was like, "I don't know." So, but I actually did get sick. I ate 2 or 3 of the tablets, and it made me really, really sick. But I ate several rations for Vietnam. Try those. Yeah, I don't know what was wrong with me. I think I was a little off in the head back then. So, but I thought it was just a cool piece of military history that a lot of people didn't do.
Mhm.
And that was my logic of thinking for it, but I got tired of getting sick, and I said one of these days I'm gonna wind up in the hospital.
Yeah.
So I quit. And it wasn't what I really wanted to do anyway. I'm doing now what I did want to do originally. I
Mhm.
just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the means then. But I mean, people, and I mean, you put in a lot of time and effort into all of your videos. I don't think people understand what goes into the YouTube videos, or how hard, people like you and JD and vlogging through history, and anyone that does this works. Filming the video is only just one part of it. The
Yeah.
research is another part, And the main part is the editing aftermath of it.
Editing is by
And
far the most time consuming portion of it all.
it's the part that makes you want to pull your hair out too sometimes.
Yeah, depending on you can come back from a trip and all your footage isn't how you thought it would be, and yeah.
I, re- I can concur with you on forgetting stuff in the car. I can't
Mhm.
tell you how many times I've actually got out like a mile down the road from the car ready to film just to turn on the camera and it say no memory card.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I mean it gets annoying. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yep, and then, the more cameras you have more accessories, more chargers, more batteries, and it's just like because I have my normal camera, and then for like slow mo B roll, I use a newer GoPro. I don't know what number. I think there's like 40 of them out, but um, the GoPro footage like slow mo is really good. It's really clean and crisp. The only drawback is you need a lot of light, so it's
yeah.
hard to use inside. But yeah, I mean, I have a camera clip. I usually have a backpack. I clip the GoPro here, and then I have my normal camera. So it's like you're trying to like swap back and forth, and then I'm taking pictures with my phone for like thumbnails and stuff like that. It's yeah, you need 30 hours in a day, and then you need 3 or 4 arms. So I'm still trying to figure out how to do any of those.
So what's to come on the channel for Project Pass moving in the near future?
Um, got a few things. As far as traveling, not a whole lot this year, at least so far. I may do a few more local things. The 160th anniversary of Allusty is coming up in a couple weeks. Actually, I think next weekend or maybe the week prior. Anyway, February 18th, I believe. And then, so I'm going to be going there. I've been wanting to go for years now, and I've always have something going on that weekend. So finally, I was like, all right, this weekend, nothing's happening besides I'm going to that reenactment. So I'll be doing that. It's about, I don't know, hour and 20 minutes from me. And then in April, we're going to be going to Chickamauga, going back to Chattanooga, and then I want to hike Toccoa. So it'll be a busy trip, but a lot of stuff around that, I guess, northwest, northeast Atlanta area, Kennesaw Mountain, things of that nature. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that. So expect that. And then I'm going to be doing the Dade Massacre um, probably at the beginning of the summer. I'm in early communications with them now, but I want to get a guide lined up. And because it's one of those things where, again, I can read it and tell you about it on camera, but I feel like that's one of it's a very important conflict in our nation's history that doesn't get a lot of attention, the Seminole Wars. So I want it told correctly. So I'm going to try and get down there at some point. That's a little farther for me. It's about 2.5 hours. But yeah, so I'm going to focus on some local stuff. Believe it or not, I live in St. Augustine and I've barely scratched the surface of St. Augustine history, which is weird. So maybe
It,
a little more of that towards the end of the year, but we'll see.
and maybe I'll have to work my way to St. Augustine and we do some stuff together in St. Augustine.
Sure. Sure.
So
Summertime is
we'll see what's on the
crazy.
horizon. Huh?
Summertime is crazy busy here, but we can find something.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned one thing, or actually two things that kind of drew my attention, and you mentioned
Mhm.
Kennesaw Mountain. I've been to Kennesaw, and one of the coolest aspects of that battlefield to me was the ground, and just seeing the ground for yourself. If you read accounts from the Battle of Kennesaw, you can read about how crazy it was. I mean, in my
Mhm.
mind, it was just kind of weird before I went how a Confederate line was only laying 50 yards from Union troops,
Yeah.
but couldn't see them.
Yeah.
When you get there, you see why that is. And I'm so excited that you're going to Kennesaw because I can't wait to see your reaction to the tactical layout of the ground itself.
Mhm.
Um, because out of all the battlefields I've been, I've never seen anything like it. And it really, really puts you into perspective. So I'm really excited to see your reaction to that and what you think about the tactical ground there at Kennesaw
Hmm.
when you go. So that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing, when you put those episodes out. And
Yeah.
the other thing is the Dade Massacre.
Hmm.
I mean, I have family. I mean, we've talked about this off camera. So I got family that fought there, and we found out that someone I'm kin to is buried right there in St. Augustine
Wow.
that
Yeah.
fought in the Seminole Wars.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
It's one of those. I
but
went to the reenactment first week of January, and it's one of those things that I don't really know a whole lot about. But I was like, I'll go to the reenactment and see it for myself, and it was fantastic. Throughout the reenactment, they had like a narrator. They had like a American soldier narrator, and then they had a Seminole warrior narrator, and they were narrating as the battle was unfolding. What you're seeing, and accounts from the men on both sides. It was really cool, and it kind of got my gears turning. And so I'm excited to go back there and share that story.
you really should clear your schedule for August, or try to, and come towards where I live, just north of Mobile, Alabama. There's a place here called Fort Mims,
Okay.
and it's site of one of the worst massacres to ever occur on American soil. And it was really the kickoff point with the Battle of Burnt Corn to the Creek Indian Wars, the Red State
Hmm.
Wars, some people call it, but we know it here as the Creek Indian Wars on, the reservation in the area where I live, which is right in the heart of where this happened and kicked off at. And they do a reenactment at the beginning of, or at the end of August rather, and it's one of the coolest experiences that you can really experience from that time frame, because it's like the Seminole Wars. It doesn't get enough attention. A lot of
Hmm.
people don't even know what it was.
Hmm.
And that is one of the reasons why Andrew Jackson isn't my most favorite figure historically. To this day, people have their own opinions of historical figures when they do what you and I do. And um on this trip I'm getting ready to do, we're going to be featuring some Trail of Tears things. For those of you that don't know a lot of the history of Andrew Jackson, he was the one ultimately responsible for that event. Um, and when you really dig into the history of it, you really turn some stones over. You have to be careful with. And I was wondering, when you hit, we all have our different ways of approaching videos, and when we hit on controversial subjects, for you, how do you cope with that? Because I'm just interested, as a YouTuber standpoint. I have different ways of coping with it. How do you cope with it, or is that too much of a loaded question?
No, I mean, everyone has their own personal biases and opinions. That's nothing new. But what I try to do, to the best of my ability, is be as objectively as possible. So, like when you're talking about something controversial in history, Civil War is a pretty divisive subject. People are still
Yeah.
fighting the Civil War in my comment sections every day, but it's just try to be as objective as possible. When I go to a battlefield, I just try to tell the stories that happen there. I'm not, oh, the Union, yeah, they really slapped them good here. It's like, no, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but this is just what happened. In some of
Yeah.
my videos, I'm a woke Lincolnite, only telling one side of the story. And then a couple of videos down, I'm a Confederate sympathizer. So I'm both, apparently. But
Me too.
the best thing that I try to do is just tell history as it happened. Um,
Yeah.
Especially dealing with, something like the Dade Massacre, like 105 US soldiers were slaughtered. So naturally, as an American who served in the army, I'm somewhat sympathetic to the soldiers
Yeah.
that were massacred, right? At the same time, I need to try and understand what was happening during that time, and then why the Seminoles felt threatened, or why this event even happened. So it's easy to be like, oh, they got massacred, which is terrible, obviously. But I'm going to try and take a step back and learn there's two sides to every conflict. And just because you don't agree with a certain side, you still have to learn that side, because that offers the most clarity. So that's what I try to do to the best of my ability.
And I think that's pretty much what I try to do too. And with the subject like the Fort Mims massacre that I was mentioning, it's like the Dade massacre. there
Hmm.
were over 500 civilians killed, and this doesn't include military. There was very, very, very little military there. It was
Hmm.
really militia and civilians, and it was women and children that were brutally murdered.
Hmm.
But what people fail to understand is that the inhabitants of the fort wasn't all, the white settlers and or military. It was actually family against family. It was, you know, Native Americans in the fort, Native Americans attacking them,
Hmm.
because it was a civil war with the tribe. And I try to relay that history to the best. And man, we can't stop the internet trolls. We really can't. Someone's always going to be unhappy with what you're doing. I can't tell you how many times I've got to comment on the Gettysburg videos. Why are you only showing Union monuments and no Confederate monuments? Or, if I show something Confederate related, well, they were traitors to the South. And then Arlington, the Arlington House episode, wow, go look at the comments on that one. That was loaded there. People really didn't like me being at Robert E. Lee's house for some reason. And, it's history,
Hmm.
and there's not really one side or the other side. It's just it happened. And the way I see it is that I try to relay the history, you know,
Hmm.
and not be biased. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have my opinions, but you know, then again, I didn't live then, and I'm trying to understand it for myself.
Hmm. Exactly.
So how can we be biased against something we're trying to study and understand?
Hmm.
You know, so um, but as far as current events, you've got some great things coming on the channel. I can't wait to see some of your content coming. And a lot of people don't know about your Patreon. I'm a member of your Patreon.
Well,
I
I thank
love
you.
being a member. Well, I love being a member of your Patreon, and it's not just because of the cool post you put up, but
Hmm.
it I'm gonna be honest, 80% of the reason why I love your Patreon so much is the monthly newsletter that comes out that you do like your own little magazine.
Hmm.
And man, I read each one like 4 or 5 times. Talk a little bit about what gave you that idea to do that.
Well, I mean, anytime it's so weird, like asking people to support you financially. Like,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable, especially, but now everything's a little uncertain economically. Things are a little more expensive than they used to be. And, my wife, who's my obviously biggest supporter, she's always like, "You just try it. If you get two, like that's more than you had, like it's like, all right." So I made it, and I was like, I'm asking people to support me financially, whether 3, 5, 10, doesn't matter. I want to provide something. Like, I don't just want to give them extra history content in the form of a post. Like, I want to give them something tangible, I guess. And I was like, you know what? I'll do like a newsletter magazine thing. And, so whatever month it is, I'll find some, 2 or 3 events that happened during that month. And actually, funny you brought it up. I've made some copies of like the very first one. So this is the War Room, it's called. And then this one was about the charge of the First Minnesota. It came out right around the Gettysburg 160. And this one was cool because Dustin, who now I consider a close friend, he gave me, or he let me use his grandfather's journal from World War II. So you're
Wow.
essentially reading his journal in here as he went from France all the way to Germany. He was in an artillery unit. So you're reading it unfiltered, as he experienced the war. And I thought that's why I made some copies of it. I gave him one. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to provide people that are going out of their way to support me with something of, something worthy. And I'm happy to hear your feedback about it. So I'm going to continue doing it, I guess, huh?
Well, yeah, and you actually gave me a copy of that one when we
Good.
met up at Gettysburg, and I read it honestly 4 or 5 times because
It's
it's
cool.
just so interesting.
Hmm.
And that's something, I was telling someone else the other day. that was asking me about your channel, and they said, "Well, what's Patreon?" And I explained the whole thing to them, and I told them I was like, "It's worth it because they are big magazine buyers of Civil War Times and World War II magazine, at Barnes and Noble and Books
Mhm.
a Million or whatever." And I ended up letting him read that copy of it, and he gave it back to me that afternoon, and he loved it. So whether or not he, you know, bought the Patreon, I don't know. I didn't ask him, but it's something I'm not seeing anyone else do, and I know for me, I look forward to it every month.
Good.
So it's very
I'm happy
cool.
to hear
So
that because
I
again, like I feel like I could never, when someone's deciding to essentially pay a monthly subscription to me, I'm like, I wasn't even expecting 100 people to subscribe to my YouTube. Now people are paying for extra content, so it's like I feel like I can never provide enough. I'm always trying to find something else to shoot your guys' way, and so I'm happy to hear the feedback that people are enjoying it. So, and I've gotten emails from other patrons saying the same. So it makes me kind of gives you that extra relights that fire to keep getting stuff out to you guys. Cause I mean, like I said, I wasn't even expecting, when I first started this, I was like, I'll just, go out to sites and film and, I need a hobby. I think my wife is just trying to get me out of the house because she was always encouraging me to do it. But um, yeah, so again, I'm thankful for everything. I'm on this live chat. I'm doing a live chat Saturday. It's pretty cool to be part of this history community and be around like-minded people. So I'm very thankful.
you know and I'm the same way. For me, it when I started doing, kind of going in the direction I always wanted to do with mine. I was watching you, I was watching JD from the History Underground, Chris from Vlogging Through History, and I never thought, I would actually talk to you guys, much less become really, really, really good friends with you.
Hmm.
And for me, it's really cool being in this community because I'm a fan myself. I know we're fans of each other's channels. It's a really small, close knit community. A
Hmm.
lot of people they think about YouTubers fighting for views, fighting for subscriptions. I could care less.
Hmm.
I love doing this, and I know pretty much you're the truck's cutting off here, but
Oh, that's
pretty
not a
much you're
bomb.
this,
You're
and
not out
pretty
of
much
time.
you're the but pretty much you guys are the same way. It it's such a cool community, and we learn
Mhm.
so much from watching each other.
Oh yeah.
And for me, people just kind of stumble through my extraordinarily long videos of me blabbing on about nothing, about the history of each place. I just get too in depth. But
Yeah, but that's the
you
thing.
know,
Like everyone has their own style and way of telling a
yeah.
story. So it's always cool to see, different story styles and different information. And, right now JD's running a really good thing on, certain Band of Brothers sites and like that stuff
Oh yeah.
everyone has seen the series. Most people have. So like when he's telling these stories and stuff, it's really captivating because you're like, I feel like I know these people from the miniseries, and then you're going to places that I've never even heard of. So it's like I'm learning about these places that I wouldn't go to myself. But now, it gets my wheels turning. So I think that's the coolest thing. Same thing with Chris. Like
Yeah.
he has his own World War I channel now, vlogging through history.
Oh yeah.
And like again, stories and things that I would never know to even research that are now in my living room. So I think that's the coolest thing.
And it's because of mainly those two guys. I blame it on them that my wallet is going broke trying to save up to go overseas.
Yeah, yeah.
So but yeah, I mean that's the cool thing. We're all fans of each other's channel. And JD has that awesome series right now, but I guess the big thing is Band of Brothers is kind of falling behind right now to Masters of the Air. Have you seen it?
I have, and it's awesome. I've watched every
Oh
episode, I
yeah.
think twice now. Um, it's a little more faster paced than Band of Brothers. You kind of just jump right into it in the first episode. So
Yeah.
I'm having to watch them a few times just to try and get some clarity as to what's going on. But it's cool because when this buzz started happening about Masters of the Air, I I didn't know a whole lot about the air war in World War II. You know, I know the major events, but as far as like, you know, the 8th Air Force, I had no idea about what they went through during the war. So you started seeing these trailers and things, and now your gears are turning. And turns out there is a 8th Air Force Museum right outside of Savannah, 2.5 hours from my house. So a couple weekends ago, I went up there and I got an exclusive tour of a B-17, and I learned more about that thing than I ever knew. And that's the cool thing about these new history shows coming out. It gets people interested. You know, you're having all this exposure now on a portion of the war that not a whole lot of people, including myself, really focused on. You know, you think of World War II, it's D-Day instantly, 101st Airborne, maybe, you know, Iwo Jima, and then, you know, Pearl Harbor, things like that. But no one thinks about that aspect of the war, at least myself. So it's been really cool to learn about their stories and, you know, what they went through, and especially walking through the B-17 myself. When they're at a certain portion of the plane, I'm like, I know exactly like how much space he has, like the waist gunners, and, you know, seeing, you know, the bombardier and the navigator up front below the pilot. Like it's just such an incredible piece of machinery that I wouldn't have even tried to learn about before the Masters of the Air. So it's really cool.
You know, okay. Spoiler, everyone. Me and James were texting about Masters of the Air months before it hit, and I think we both said we're gonna wait until all of the episodes are run and then go back and watch the series. What happened? Because now I'm
Oh, it
kicking
came out and
myself,
I was like,
dude.
nope, I'm not waiting.
No, I was the same way. Now I'm kicking myself because I'm like, okay, can Friday hurry up and get here, or Thursday night hurry up and get here so that the new episodes are on?
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Well, that's why I watch them
it's
twice.
yeah,
It's
I
like they're
know, me
coming
too.
out twice. Every episode I watch twice.
You know, um, you just went up in that B-17
Hmm.
in Savannah, or went inside of it rather.
Yeah.
And a few months ago, I went up into a B-17 in Pensacola, Florida, and I got stuck in the B-17. But we won't talk about that part. Dude, I concur with you on what you said. Like, I never realized how limited of space
Hmm.
inside of a B-17 those guys actually had.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at it from that side, it's a massive freaking plane.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then
When
when
I
you get
first walked
inside
in,
of
I
it,
was like, is this the same plane? Like, it's massive on the outside. And then you walk into it and like the fuselage, you're instantly, it's like, this is insane. And then you get the ball turret position underneath the plane. It's like, how, like he's literally scrunched up in there for hours and hours. And most of them couldn't wear their chutes. So, you know, if you can get out of the ball turret, now you got to put your chute on as this plane is, you know, tumbling through the air on fire. Most likely, it's insane what these guys went through.
the last episode, the episode that ran last week,
Hmm.
that it was it was so involved.
Hmm.
I actually had to pause that episode several times
Hmm.
because I had to literally catch my breath, man, because it really gets your brain thinking, especially when you've been into a B-17 and walk through it. And then you see those scenes where it's in combat. And the one that got me was where the ball turret just completely got blown off the plane,
Hmm.
with a guy inside. And yeah, I mean, you're scrunched up, hanging out the bottom of an airplane and a little glass ball, and you don't know what's going on above you in the plane, and then all of a sudden you got planes flying around you shooting at him,
Yeah.
shooting at you, and chaos breaking, out all around you, and anytime, flat could come through there and kill you.
Hmm.
I mean, dude, those guys, I don't know, man. They had nerves of steel, bro.
Yeah. And I'm always curious how they hit anything with, you know, those 50s. You know, those planes are moving so fast and you're trying to lead it, and then, you know, you have other bombers in formation. It's really been a whole new learning experience for me just watching this unfold. And then naturally you go back and read things of your own and going to the museum and seeing how there's 10 guys on this plane working in unison. They all have a job, they all have a purpose, and if one or a few of those guys go down, that plane survivability plummets because now you have no protection at the tail, or now, your bombardier's injured. Maybe he's not going to drop the bombs in the right place. It's insane to me how any of those crews survived.
Me too. And I really didn't know a whole lot about the air war
Hmm.
of World War II, other than just the minimal stuff. Before I went up on that B-17 and before this series launched, I knew very little, honestly. But I mean, it's just I don't see how any of those guys. I think the odds of these guys surviving was very, very small. Like 1 in 20 may come back.
Hmm.
And I mean, pretty much, I mean, how did these guys even go into combat knowing, okay, I'm going up an airplane to fight in the war, and my odds are 1 in 20 of coming home, so I'm probably going to die. And they were okay with it.
Hmm.
You know, it I just I can't see how those guys were able to do that.
Yeah, it's
So
the series has done a tremendous job opening up a whole new avenue to learn from. I mean, it's uh I mean,
mm,
one thing that was really cool that I noticed watching it the second time, the last episode, was just the character progression. So it opens up, they're flying through some flak and they're all calm, cool, and collected. They're all doing their jobs. But like you rewind to the first episode and they're experiencing flak for the first time, and you can tell they're anxious and nervous. And it's just I thought that was a nice little touch, or at least maybe it was inadvertent, but they're flying through the flak and you can see everyone's like laser focused or looking for fighters. Like they're not even paying attention to it. And it was kind of cool to see that character progression, but it also shows you just being as a human when you're exposed to something like that, how numb you get and how just laser focused you get, and it just becomes normal to you. Like exploding shells in the air isn't normal, but by these guys third or fourth mission, they're not even paying attention to it. It's just it's just, all right, we're getting flak now, we're getting closer to the target. Like it's not even, I don't know, I thought that was very interesting to see.
one of the biggest things for me was when the plane landed at the, I don't want to ruin it for anyone that hadn't seen it, but you know, at the end of the last episode, the plane lands, it's beat to hell and back.
Mhm.
And I was sitting there thinking to myself, how? Like, how did this thing even stay in the air?
Mhm.
Some of the skill of these pilots during World War II was absolutely insane. He was literally flying a hunk of junk, and he was able to land this thing, and no one died other than the guy that got shot in the plane.
Mhm.
And I and then they would patch these things up and get them back in the air. The ground crews would. So I mean, the pilots, the crew, the ground crews, these guys were like, I mean, just tough as nails, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what has been your favorite thing about the series so far?
Um, I mean, just seeing that aspect of the war in a way that you haven't seen it before, at least from my perspective. Again, like I said, I wasn't a period of the war that I really, or a part of the war that I didn't really pay much attention to. It was just like, okay, we're bombing them during the day, British bomb them at night, and then the ground troops are coming in this way and doing all this. So it's, like I said, it's kind of got my wheels turning and got new perspectives on what those crews went through, especially before they had fighter escorts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it it definitely opens up a new door. I guess the thing I like about the series the most is pretty authentic. As
Mhm.
far as I pay attention to little stuff like the uniforms and a bag of eggs that was period correct for a bag of eggs at the time because I pay attention to minute details like that because that's kind of what I'm interested in. And it really impressed me with how much thought they put into this series. JD had a conversation on a live stream a couple weeks ago or last week, and they were talking about in one of the shots the guard shack actually had the interior set up correctly, even though they
Mhm.
never filmed anything. I mean, so they're going taking that extra mile to make sure this is authentic and correct as possible. So I really enjoy that about it, and that it's going to get people interested. Like, um, you're interested in it now more. I am as well. It kind of has the Band of Brothers effect, is what I like to call it. Is it gets your wheels turning and gets you excited and interested about learning about that aspect of the war.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I didn't even pay attention to it. Now, you know, I was crawling through a B-17 2 weeks ago. So, um, and if anyone watching the mighty 8th Air Force Museum just outside of Savannah, definitely worth a visit. The staff there is amazing. Um, it's a B-17 that they've been working on for 15 years, and it's almost fully restored. I mean, this thing is amazing, the amount of work that they've put into it, just to bring that history back to life. So it's pay that place a visit if you're ever there. It's definitely worth it.
And you just posted that video a week or so ago,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
that you guys can go watch that episode on Project Past. So how was that experience for you personally? When you were able to crawl through that plane.
Oh, it was amazing because one, it wasn't really I wasn't expecting that. I emailed them a few weeks prior just asking if it'd be okay to film there. They were, of course, were more than okay with it. And then if anyone was there that wanted to speak on the B-17 you had there, maybe give some facts about it, things like that. And I got there, and then the project manager, Greg, um, kind of let me do whatever I want. He's like, "You want to go inside?" I was like, "Oh yeah, cool, yeah, let's do it." And then he's like, "You want to like crawl through the entire thing?" I was like, "Are you sure? Like, I don't want to get in the way of visitors' experiences." He's like, "No, like you're here, like we're gonna do." So he talked a little bit about it on the outside, and then let me in, and then we literally walked from tail to nose, and I came out. I don't know the exact name of it, but we came out near the where the bombardier and navigator are up in the front. There's like a hatch there, so we essentially entered in the tail, walked through the waist, walked through the radio room, walked, the bomb bay doors, which is really cool. I was trying to envision, you're walking across this little catwalk. Think about being 20,000 feet in the air, nothing holding you in. So it's just it was I was trying to envision what an airman would have been going through during a mission in 44, 45, 43, whatever. It's crazy. And then how cramped it truly was. I was sitting in the pilot seat, and I'm not a big guy, but I obviously know I'm bigger than they were back then. So just sitting in this seat was very surreal. Like, how do you fly this thing? Yeah, I sat up in the ball turret up top, and you got a 50 caliber machine gun on each shoulder. I'm like, how do you communicate? How do
Yeah.
you? It's just, it was very, very eye opening. And it went by like this, but I was there for like 3 hours. But it was awesome.
It's funny you mentioned the bombardier, or whatever the section is where the bombs drop the little catwalk. And if you guys will look at a B-17 where the bombs are, you have a little catwalk that goes from that area where the doors open, and it basically cuts into like a V shape.
Yeah.
And then you walk in, and there's the pilot and the co-pilot seats and the radio operator, I believe. But anyway, that little V where you walk off the catwalk into the cockpit, well, I got stuck. So,
So I got
you know, I
snagged, but I got out, but then I hit my head. So I got caught trying to walk through this little catwalk with the camera, trying not to make sure it's going all over the place. So I got caught. So I backed up, and then I went forward again, and I hit my head on the door going into the cockpit. I think I hit my head like 4 times. Yeah.
that's what was amazing to me is like how the guys even operate in that little bitty space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
they're shooting at enemy fighters, taking flak, trying to do stuff in their hurry, figure out where they're going, where they're bombing, and they have virtually no room to move.
No, or they have no protection. Like, that's the thinnest aluminum I've ever felt. Like there's nothing stopping a bullet going through the skin of that plane. Not to
It's
mention,
literally
much less
like
a 20 millimeter cannon or a shrapnel from flak. It was again very eye opening, but they couldn't be armored down because they had to carry so much payload. They had fuel, like every bit of poundage counts. So again, another thing you don't really think about, like there's no protection.
no, and it makes it's really as thin as a Coke can.
Hmm.
If you feel the outside layer of a Coke can and you squeeze it, that's almost how thin that aluminum is.
Hmm.
And those, dude, could you imagine just sitting there taking flak? A hole opens up. I would be scared to death. I'm gonna fall out of the plane. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm even scared on airplanes today when I get on them to fly somewhere. And dude, I don't know. That's one job I could have not did. I don't care how much you pay me. If you pressure me into it, I'm leaving the country. I mean, you could not get me up on one of those things. They offered me to fly on that B-17, and I just told them flat out no. You know, because I was thinking about the crew in Texas
Hmm.
that passed away last year, and you know those things are anything could go wrong. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of them lost their lives just in crashes for no reason,
Hmm.
and they highlighted that in the series too. The crew that was killed on the training mission.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's a dangerous job, and I like how they really highlight that in the series.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been everything I thought it was, and then some. So very happy with it.
So this Saturday, you've got a live stream coming up
Yep.
on your channel. Give us a little peek and tease on what's going to be coming on Saturday from me.
So I've never done one before outside of like, being asked to be on them, but I've never done one on my channel. So I figured, I just crossed the 6,000 subscriber mark. Again, didn't think I would break 20 at a certain time. So I just wanted to, there's a lot of newer people on the channel. People have been following me for a while. So I just wanted to kind of give a state of the channel, where we've been, what I'm currently working on, and then what's to come. So just kind of want to, nothing crazy, we're not going super in depth on anything, but just kind of wanted to let everybody know what's coming up and maybe interact with some of the followers and, just again, hang out on a Saturday, talk a little history, and yeah, get excited about upcoming trips, things like that.
I'm gonna do my best to be there. God only knows where I'm gonna be on Saturday. Uh, but you know, you've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for
Um,
having me.
I'm I'm
Appreciate it.
I'm happy. I'm happy we can finally get on together and
Yeah.
do something.
And I'm
And
beyond grateful for all the support. You're a Patreon member and you're always sharing posts on Instagram and things of that nature. So I'm beyond grateful for all the support you throw my way, and I hope I can reciprocate that. So
you're a great guy, man. I'm proud to call you a friend, and I love everything you're doing and everything you've got coming. I can't wait to see. And guys, if you haven't checked out Project Pass, you're really missing out. And if you haven't become a Patreon member, if you can do it, go try to do it because you'll definitely get the bang for your buck. I promise you. And then, well, we're hitting on an hour, so you got things to do. I probably need to get back on the road. This is a storm on me here, and yeah, this is going to be a sight I see for a little while here inside of this truck. So, um, we you got a lot of stuff coming. Tune in to Project Pass. Tell him I sent you over there, and
thank you.
give him some support. Thank you, James, for everything, and we will see you soon. So,
Yep. You'll see me around. Thank you, everybody.
all right, man, take it easy.
See ya.